Hello students, welcome to IAS. In today's video, we are going to discuss about on the very important concepts that we have to learn and understand in the climate part of geography. We are going to discuss about fog. What basically is a fog? What is the definition of fog? How can we classify the fog into different categories? Characteristics of the fog, as well as what is its effect that we can observe on human life in general. So let us understand the fog topic. But first of all, to give you a brief idea that why we are talking about this particular topic and how it is relevant in the current times. So recently it has been observed that from last two consecutive morning, dense fog has enveloped northwestern part of India, especially the capital city of New Delhi. However, the nearby cities of Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh have also been affected by the fog. So the fog episode is something that follow a comparatively warm start or has followed a comparatively warm start to the winter, and they are most likely to occur over the Indo-Gangetic Plain region, that is the northern plain region of India, for the next 3 days, if you believe the Indian Meteorological Department. And thus, due to this, visibility will be quite poor, will be reduced significantly, and thus, in the hours before and after the daybreak, the conditions of fog will be much more, we can say, dense in nature or much more effective in nature. So first, to understand a brief idea about what basically is a fog. So in simple term, we can define it as a kind of visible aerosol that consists of tiny water droplets or ice crystals which remain suspended in the air at or near the earth's surface. So in one way, fog is nothing but kind of, we can say, cloud, or to be more precise, we can say fog is a ground level cloud, because cloud development that happens in the upper part of atmosphere or in the middle part of atmosphere also happens in the similar manner. So fog in simple terms is a ground level cloud made up of tiny water droplets or ice crystals suspended in the air at or near the surface of earth. Apart from that, what we can understand that it is considered as a type of low-lying cloud, usually resembling stratus cloud. If we talk about the types of cloud, total three major types of cloud we have in our atmosphere. The low altitude cloud, that is up to 2 kilometers. Then we have the middle altitude cloud, that is up to 6 kilometers. And then we have the high altitude that are found above the height of 6 kilometers in the atmosphere. So in that respect, fog can be considered as a low-lying cloud. Third point, we can understand that fogs or the density of fog, the effect of the fog or intensity of fog is heavily influenced by a lot of factors, and the major factors are nearby bodies of water. That means what is the amount of water available around the area where fog is developing. You have obviously, if the amount of water available is higher, the condensation will also be higher, and the density of fog can be believed to be much more intense. Topography, whether it is a flat land, whether it is a hilly area, whether it is a valley area, that also influence the fog formation. And finally, the conditions of the wind. If wind is blowing at very fast speed, they will not allow the cloud fog to develop in any particular area, but they will be dissipated and dispersed across different regions. So we need to have a stagnant kind of wind conditions if the fog has to develop. So these are the influencing factors for the fog formation. Now coming to the most basic questions, that why do fogs forms in the first? So the region or the main region which can explain the formation of fog is thermal inversion. Thermal inversion sometimes is also referred as inversion of temperature. Let us try to understand this topic in more detail. So basically, if we talk about the change of temperature in our atmosphere, if we talk about the tropospheric region where the most of the climatic phenomena and the weather phenomena occurs on the earth, if we go from the ground surface to a higher part or upper part of troposphere, what we see, there is a continuous decline in the atmosphere. That means in normal conditions, if we go higher up in the atmosphere, we see decline or decrease in temperature. Now this is something all of you must have experienced, that if you go in the higher part of the hills or the upper part, the peak regions of the hill, gradually you feel more cold, more shivering. So that is because of decline in temperature. But when the thermal inversion happens, this trend changes, and instead of decline in temperature with the height, in the troposphere, what do we observe? We observe increase in temperature with the height. That means near the ground surface, the air is colder, and as you move away from the ground surface, air began to become warmer and warmer in nature. So this is called as thermal inversion or inversion of temperature. So due to the temperature inversion, near the ground surface, the air that develops is very cold air, and since this air is very cold in nature, the cold air has less capacity to retain the water vapor in its vapor form, and thus the extrawater vapor start to condense themselves into liquid, small microscopic liquid water droplet, and this suspended a small microscopic liquid water droplet is what we term as a fog. So again, to simplify it, we have thermal inversion. Thermal inversion causes cooling of air, and the cooling of air causes sudden condensation of large amount of water vapor into fog. So this is how we can explain formation of fog. So to give you a brief idea about how the structure of atmosphere look like in the normal conditions and thermal inversion. So as we can see, during a typical day, near the ground surface, we have warmer air, we have hot air because the earth's surface is hotter, and that is why it transfers the heat to the atmospheric part or the part of atmosphere that is closest to it. While if you move away, as the distance of the atmospheric gases increases from the earth's surface, the effect of heating is observed to a lesser extent, giving rise to cooler and colder air. But sometime during the winter season specifically, and in the time of night when the earth's surface is cooling at very rapid rate due to radiative effect, due to radiative cooling, at that time the earth's surface become very cold, and thus rather than producing a warming effect on the nearby gases of the earth, it produces a cooling effect. And due to the cooling effect of earth, the nearby air which is close to surface becomes colder in nature, while the upper layer above this cold layer, we can understand, it is not in contact with the ground surface. The cooling effect does not is not observed here, and thus this air remains warmer in nature, while in the upper part of atmosphere obviously we'll have a cold air. So we can see that during the temperature inversion we have a warm air pocket that seems to be sandwiched between two different cold air pockets, one on the top and other on the bottom. So this situation is what is called as thermal inversion. Thermal inversion causes formation of fog. Now coming to the next important point we have to discuss about is how can we classify fogs into different types. So in general, if you look at examples from all across the world, the fog can be classified into four major types. The first is radiation fog, also called as radiative fog. This fog develops as we discussed right now because the ground surface during the winter season in the night time loses heat in the form of radiation. And as the ground loses heat in the form of radiation, it becomes cold, and due to this region, the air that is closer to this ground surface becomes colder, and this is what is called as, and this causes the condensation into fog that we call as radiative fog. The second type of fog is what we can call as advection fog. Now advection fog forms if there is a warm air pocket that is moving over a cold surface. So if the warm air pocket is moving over the cold surface, when it comes in contact with the cold surface, there will be cooling of the warm air, and due to the cooling of this warm air, the moisture that is present in this particular warm air pocket will start to condense, and that can also result into the formation of fog. This kind of fog we will generally see around those parts of the earth where we have cold current, cold ocean current that is flowing through. To give you example, around California region of United States of America, we have a cold current that is called as California current flows through, and that is why when the warm air from the land of California goes toward the sea, it comes into contact with this California cold current and thus result into formation or development of advection fog. The third type of fog, what we can call as a frontal fog. Frontal fog develops when two different type of air masses. One is the warm air mass and other is the cold air mass. When these two air masses interact with each other, warm air being lighter start to rise up along the cold air mass, and thus it start to cool down, or the cooling effect of colder mass is exerted on this warmer mass. That also leads to condensation that can result into formation of frontal fog. And this is something that we can observe in the Canadian region of Newfoundland, that Grand Banks region is there, where you have two different currents, Gulf Stream that is warm in nature coming from the south, and Labrador current that is cold in nature coming from the north meet each other. So as the two different kind of ocean current come and meet with each other, above them also we have the two different kind of air masses that come in contact with each other, and that is why formation of frontal fog takes place. The last type of fog which we have discussed about is a valley fog. A valley fog is something that is obviously observed in a valley area. Valley, to remind you, is a depressed region which is present between two different mountain barriers or two different hill peak. So due to the structure of valley, like this kind of structure of valley, what happens? The denser, colder air gets trapped near the valleys, while warmer air remains suspended above this cold air. So this is also kind of temperature inversion that is called as valley inversion, and valley inversion result into formation of valley fog. So this is how we can characterize and classify the fog into different types. After that, if we talk about the current situation that we have discussed, we have formation of fog that is going on in north and northwestern part of India. So what are the factors that contribute to development of fog in the northern India? So three major conditions we can understand here. The first condition is there is a development of cold wave conditions that generally happens in the month of December to January. The reason is very simple, because it is during this time the sun actually has moved into the southern hemisphere, and this the amount of heating that happens over the landmass of northern India is much lesser, and due to this region there is a more cooling effect that is pronounced here, and due to this region we have, due to cooling effect, we have temperature inversion that result in the formation of fog. Thus the fog that forms here is called as ground level or surface fog, or ground level or surface inversion. The second reason which contribute in the development of fog is the movement of western disturbances. Western disturbances, in a simple term, can be defined as storms that generate over the Mediterranean Sea region, and then it brings a large amount of water vapor moisture toward the Indian subcontinent. When it moves toward India, it comes into contact with the Himalayas, and it is during this time when the storms, when the wind system, the air system rises along the slope of Himalayas, it causes rainfall, and due to the rainfall and also due to presence of water vapor in the western disturbances, the amount of water vapor increases in this area, that cools down very rapidly due to presence of this cold wave conditions, and that also results into formation of the fog. Even if suppose western disturbances are not bringing moisture in any particular time period, then also we know that the northern plain of India are a very rich source of water, especially we talk about groundwater, surface water, because large rivers, long rivers of India are flowing through this particular region, and also large part of this landmass is a cropped or agriculture area that is continuously or permanently in a state of irrigation. So due to this region, there is also presence of huge amount or huge number of water sources that also causes accumulation of water vapor into the atmosphere, that upon cooling during the cold condition can result into the fog formation. So these are the three major factors that contribute to the formation of fog as far as the northern India is concerned. So as far as the northern India is concerned, few characteristics of fog has been observed and noted by the Indian Meteorological Department. The first condition is that the fog in India has very high variability. That means we cannot predict accurately that what kind of fog, how dense fog will form, and what time or what month of the year this kind of fog will form. So that is why we have high variation. Second, we can say that usually though the temperature is lowest in the month of January, the densest or most intense type of fog is seen in northern India during the month of January. And third, we can say that it can be both. Sometime if it is, what we can say, if the fog that is forming is radiative in nature, in that case fog is localized. On the other hand, the fog that is forming due to advection process, due to movement of warm wind over the cold surface, in that case the fog develops over a much larger area, so it can be localized or larger depending on the nature of formation of the fog. Now coming to the most important point, that what is the effects of fog that we can observe or see in our daily life. So first of all, as you know, that fog reduces the visibility around us, and since there is reduction in visibility, there is a lot of problems that we as a person people have to face. First of all, it causes increase in the transportation or transport related accidents, because the drivers, the car drivers, the bus drivers, they are not able to see clearly that what is what you can say in front of them, and many times due to the dense fog, by the time they see something, see some cars, see some other vehicles, and by the time they put the brake, it is already very late, and they start and collide with the other vehicles, and this process goes on for a long period of time. So a lot of vehicles in this that we will see in the northern India collides, and such kind of accidents happen. Second problem that can happen is because visibility is very less, obviously the speed of the trains will be much lesser, and thus we have cancellation and delays in the trains also in the northern India during this particular time. And third, and the most major victim of the fog we can say is the aviation sector, because flights obviously cannot take off or land if the weather is not clear, if the visibility is not longer. So any case where the visibility becomes less than 2 to 3 kilometers causes delays and cancellations to the flights as well. So all the three sectors, whether it is railways, whether it is roadways, or whether it is aviation sector, is heavily impacted due to the reduction of visibility that happens in the time of fog. So this is the first effect. Second, also it has a health impact on the people as well, because what happens that during the temperature inversion, when the fog is developing, as we have just discussed, there's a development of cold air layer near the ground surface, and since the cold air is heavier, it is denser, it keeps on moving toward the ground surface rather than rising up in the atmosphere. Due to this reason, whatever pollutants that is being released by various sources such as industries, factories, vehicles are not able to move higher up in the atmosphere, but rather get trapped in this cold air parcel very closer to the ground surface. And thus gradually what happens, the amount of pollutant in the atmosphere closer to the ground surface started to increase and build up, and especially the people who are suffering from some sort of respiratory element or some sort of pulmonary diseases become severe victim of this increase in pollutant level, and thus have a bad impact on the health. This also adversely impact the children's more, because children are shorter and smaller in height, and their nose remains much more closer to the ground surface, and the maximum amount of what we can say pollutant is present near the ground surface in the times of fog formation. So thus children are, we can say, disproportionately affected by the fog formation and its health impact, its pollution impact. The third impact we can see also, because in India, especially the northern India, which is a rich agricultural belt of India, when it is affected by fog, sometime when the temperature in the atmosphere goes below 0 degrees Celsius, rather than the suspension of water vapor in the liquid form, water vapor also convert into solid form. And this is something that is referred as a frost. So when the frost start to take place, start to build up in the atmosphere, they then fall down and thus physically damages the crops that are cultivated or that have been sown in that particular time, and also it causes freezing of the water inside the plant, that also causes damage to the plant. Thus reduction visibility causing transportation issues, health impact due to buildup of high volume of pollutant, and the damage to agriculture because of the frost effect are the major impact that we can observe due to fog in our daily life. Now, you might, if you have read about fog, you might have come across two similar terms, that is mist and haze. So let us try to understand briefly what is the difference between fog, mist, and haze. So fog and mist, the formation process for both are similar. The only difference is in the difference that arises due to the what we can say reduction in visibility. For example, when you talk about fog, fog is a term generally we use if visibility is less than 1 kilometer, especially for aviation sector. And as far as the public forecast is concerned, if visibility is less than 180 meter, in that case it is said that fog has developed. On the other hand, a term mist is used if the visibility is equal to or exceeds 1000 meter, that is 1 kilometer. That means mist can be said to be a lighter form of fog. In mist, the visibility does not reduce to such amount or such extent as fog. And also the reason is because the amount of water vapor that is present in the atmosphere when the mist is forming is much more lesser as compared to the amount of water vapor present in the fog, and that is why density is differs. On the other hand, haze is something that is totally different from the fog and mist. In haze, we do not have suspension of the water droplets. Rather, we have suspension of extremely small dry particles in the air. And due to this, it gives a kind of opalescent kind of look in the atmosphere. And haze is something that you will see developing around the cities, and this is much more clearly visible in the time of evening when the light is also coming out in the city areas, and all the pollutant that is being released, that is being emitted by the vehicles, industries, factories, they get trapped around this what we can say closer to the earth's surface, and that is why it gives a kind of opaque appearances, which is also very dangerous and threatening to the life, and especially for the respiratory problems or causes of respiratory problems. In last, to give you a fun fact, what we can say, they talk about the foggiest place in the world. It is the Grand Banks region, that is here in the Nova Scotia region of Canada, and it is situated in the northern Atlantic Ocean. So basically what happens, as you discussed before also, that we have a cold Labrador current that is coming from north, and we have warm Gulf Stream that is coming from the south. So due to the mixing of these two current or meeting of these two current, it creates a prime condition where cold and warm air also meets with each other. And due to this meeting, we have development of a thick fog that forms almost every day in this particular area. So that is why it is called as the foggiest place of the world. So I hope you understood about this particular concept of fog, different types of fog, what it is effects, what it is characteristics, and all other interesting information. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more helpful content. Thank you very much.